Rhodium, my employer, is hiring for lots of jobs. We're looking for analysts covering macroeconomics and climate economics, as well as a BD role. And nearest and dearest to my heart, we're also hiring for a class of spring interns. Deadline is January 6th, and there's an essay attached, so be sure to start early. rhd.com/careers. A few weeks ago, I read my first young adult fiction book, probably since Harry Potter, and was absolutely blown away by Xiran Zhao's Iron Widow, which is a young adult Pacific Rim meets Handmaiden's Tale retelling of Wu Zetian with sort of like mechs and Chinese history and acupuncture and female empowerment all wrapped into this like absolutely amazing bow, which for a woman just only 1 or 2 years out of uni was an incredible accomplishment. Xiran has been on the podcast about a year ago talking about a Chinese history, and it's really exciting to get to bring her back as she has sort of evolved into a published fiction author and the creator of one of my favorite YouTube channels, which explores the representation of Chinese culture in popular culture. Co-hosting today is Callan Quinn, ChinaTalk's editor, responsible for making this show sound a lot better than it was before I brought her along. Callan is a journalist based in Tbilisi, Georgia. Xiran, so your book hit #1 in the young adult New York Times charts, and it's got a pretty unique unique set of topics which you're exploring. Could you give the audience a brief synopsis?
All right, so Iron Widow takes place in this like futuristic world based on pre-colonial China, where it's besieged by like these giant mecha aliens, kind of like Cybertronians from outer space, and they are like hell-bent on destroying human civilization. So like this world, Huaxia has created the Great Wall to protect against these hunduns. And then they're also capable of making giant mechas out of the hunduns' husks. And they call them chrysalises. And these chrysalises are giant mecha that take one boy and one girl to pilot, supposedly. But except this piloting system works against the girls, so the girl pilots die more often. And because of this, the boy pilots become celebrities, while the girl pilots are just seen as their concubines, and they're seen as disposable. And the protagonist, Zetian's sister, dies as one of these concubines, and she's so mad about this that she, like, enlists herself as a concubine to go and assassinate the male pilot as responsible for this, because she knows that, like, no one else is going to kill him or hold him accountable. And so, yes, that is the plot of the story.
Xiran, how do you dream this stuff up?
Iron Widow was conceived when I watched the anime Darling in the Franxx, and do not Google this anime in polite company. But anyway, it had a very interesting like concept of like pairing a boy and a girl together to pilot giant mechas, but it didn't go the direction that I wanted it to go. Like the first half was really good, but then the second half is like universally like derided. So it did not go there. And so I was ranting to a friend about it. And then suddenly that rant like spiraled out of control. And it got so, I was just ranting about like, oh, what I wish they had done differently. And then the rant spiraled so out of control that I was like, hey, I could write this as like an actual novel. And I think it'll be pretty good. And then I decided to bring in like the retelling of the Wu Zetian aspect because I decided to make the piloting system misogynist because I wanted to use it as a tool, a metaphor to explore gender roles and female oppression. And then that reminded me of Chinese harem dramas. And we all know that there's no big, like, there's no bigger, like, harem drama winner than Wu Zetian, of course. So that's why I decided to, like, do this whole thing.
So how long did it take you to write? Was this like a COVID lockdown project or it was going on before?
It was going on before in my last few semesters of university. On and off, it took me 5 months to write.
You know, the thing I found like really interesting about the book is these sort of little motifs and Easter eggs kept popping up, you know, names that sounded oddly familiar, you know, that I probably heard on Chinese history podcast or something. Can you talk a little bit about like the influences?
Oh yeah, so it's definitely like it's not even just a reimagining of the Tang Dynasty, but it's like Chinese history all stars because like you must have noticed that all the provinces are named after a different dynasty, And then like characters from different dynasties are from different provinces. So you have like Zhuge Liang and Sima Yi like rushing over. Well, Zhuge Liang didn't rush over. It was Sima Yi who rushed over from the Sangluo province. And then in canon, the Sangguo province is like really chaotic, and it's like the province nobody wants to be because like it's full of just gangs and like factions warring. And then the Tang province is like really big, but it's also like bundled with the Sui province in defense matters because the Sui province is really small, but it's really rich.
You just seemed like you were having so much fun when you were writing this. I mean, was there sort of research going on simultaneously, or had you ingested enough of this content to kind of just have it sort of spill out of you?
Oh, I definitely just like, yeah, it was just me like spilling out the content. And honestly, it's like the amount of history that a Chinese boomer would know, because my parents' Chinese boomer friend group got a hold of the book. And then they were just like laughing at all the Easter eggs in it, because like there's especially like how Wu Zetian's little brother is named Wu Dalang, and yeah, they got a kick out of that. And like the only reason that I had him as Wu Zetian's little brother was just like for the shits and giggles, you know.
What would you say are like your biggest Easter eggs you'd want people to notice reading the book?
The fact that wontons are how they pronounced huндун in the South. And the soup, the lore is that wonton soup was like made out of like the Huaxia people's hatred of hunduns. So they're like, oh, we're gonna make you into soup and we're gonna eat you every morning because, you know, Chinese people, they have this tradition of naming dishes after their enemies, after people they hate. Yeah, top one. Just number two, I guess the name Huaxia itself, because I don't think that's a term that people not familiar with Chinese history and like deep Chinese lore would know, but it's Huaxia is like this ancient name for China. And what's number three? I guess just the fact that the Zhuge Liang and Sima Yi partnership was destined to fail. Like, because like toward the end, like Sima Yi does this thing. And should I spoil it? No spoilers on this. But like toward the end, Sima Yi does this thing, and everyone who's not familiar with Chinese history, they're like, "Oh my god, how could he?" But you know, if you're familiar with Chinese history, you saw it coming.
Can you talk a bit about the historical character Wu Zetian and why, you know, you decided to get inspiration from her?
Well, Wu Zetian is the only female emperor in Chinese history, and she just inspires this book because, like, really, like, she is the single most accomplished Chinese woman of all time. So, and I really was inspired by just like the ways in which she made it to the top, despite like all the patriarchal pressures that were placed upon her. And I wanted to just invoke that spirit in this like really dystopian, misogynist environment, like sci-fi futuristic world. Zetian, from my novel, is basically like the historical Zetian reimagined, like if she were reincarnated in this world and then had to deal with all of it.
You know, the treatment of women, as you alluded to a few times in our conversation so far, is one of the central themes in this book. There's a beautiful image you have of the protagonist Zetian, who grew up with bound feet for the first time, sort of getting hooked up to the Mecha, the Gundam, like your imagination of a Gundam suit. You have her saying, "Infinite possibilities open to me at once. That's right. I'm no longer human. I've been set free from my broken body, that husk of flesh and bone that has prepared all its existence to be used for the whims and pleasures of men." And then, you know, she goes and ends up like bounding through the sky and, is able to move without pain for the first time, you know, since she was a toddler, probably. Xiran, can you talk a little bit about that, that moment and more generally sort of like the freedom which this the sort of experience of being inside the Mecha gives Zetian that the rest of society wouldn't?
So, like, first I want to talk about why I included foot binding in this novel, and it's because foot binding is a thing that has always haunted me since I was a kid, because, you know, like, of course, as a kid, like, you learn about it, and then it's, at foot binding, the thing is, it's so close, it's actually, like, not that far off from like, modern day, it was only stopped, like, 100 years ago, so, like, even as a kid, I would just, like, constantly be reminded that if I were born 100 years ago, then that would have been my fate. That would have happened to me. So, and then it's just always haunted me because it's like, why? Why would you do this? And then it's like the epitome of patriarchal oppression to me. Just like, yeah, it's definitely just the epitome of patriarchal oppression for me. And so I felt like it was important to put it in this book that like specifically talks about misogyny, just because it exemplifies all that's wrong with like the oppression of women. So that's why I included foot binding in the world of Iron Widow. And then the thing with like the chrysalises, the giant mechas in Iron Widow, is that they are a symbol of power and freedom. So like the moment that Zetian gets into it, then she is like set free from her body, basically. The body that like has doomed her to all this oppression because she had the misfortune of being born a woman in this world. But then once she gets like transcends her mortal flesh, transcends her mortal coil and into the chrysalis, then suddenly she has all these freedoms. And then after like she has tasted that freedom, then she doesn't really want to go back to like her oppressed existence. So that's why she fights so hard against the piloting system and her government.
So what's the sort of science behind powering the mechas?
So this sci-fi in Iron Widow is like the science part is actually just like traditional Chinese metaphysics. So it all operates with like the qi and then like the 5 elemental system, which is wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And so like that's what powers the chrysalises, and like different types of chi like have different effects, and like it's actually a very complicated system. But even in the book, I'm like, you don't need to know this, you don't need to memorize this, just like go along with the ride, people. And so yeah, they use acupuncture needles, like they use these like tiny needles that get pushed into the pilot's spines to like access their chi flow, so the pilots can like transcend their bodies and like embody the chrysalises instead.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Confucianism and the sort of role that it plays in shaping the society you created in your world.
Confucianism. So I hate Confucius. This is not a secret. I hate him. I think if you quote Confucius and you don't sound deep because he's an asshole. So he was very strict on like societal roles and like designated roles for people, right? So his philosophy was very just if people stay in their lane, then society will function harmoniously. And that's just like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? And so Confucius has been a blight all my life, and probably the blight on like millions of women throughout Chinese history. And there actually is like the leader of Huaxia is called Chairman Kong. So that's straight up just a reimagining of Confucius. Definitely Zetian is like very plagued by these like Confucian family values, and she fights against that, literally crushes it with her giant mecha, literally crushing the Confucian patriarchies.
Is there a Chinese translation in the works, or?
No, there is not, and I don't think I'm going to get one unless it comes from Taiwan or Hong Kong.
Like, I feel like there'd be enough of an audience in Taiwan for this sort of thing.
Yeah, probably. So we'll see about that. But definitely I'm not getting a mainland translation. And then my my MG book, Zachary Yin and the Dragon Emperor, I am straight up not gonna that book is like might get me barred entry from China because I straight up talk it, because the protagonist is Hui Chinese, which I am, and like he's just straight up a Muslim. And then his dad is an executed dissident.
So Xiran, we first met on Twitter, and I noticed you started to branch out to other platforms. Your first video, you now have like a dozen or so videos on YouTube, of which I've watched almost every single one. Your first video on everything culturally wrong with Mulan has 3 million views. How does that happen? Like, who blessed you with the content creation gift?
I don't know. Like, literally, I do not know. Like, you were there when I uploaded my first video, and then I just threw it on. And then you were the one who actually told me that it was getting like 100,000 views, because I had like, I just threw it on YouTube, and then it didn't really like get that many views its first day. Like, I think like a couple thousand. So I was like, eh. And then you were the one who told me that it had started going viral. And then at that point, I was like, oh, what the hell? And then I completely did not intend to become a YouTuber at all. But then that video ended up getting me like 80,000 subscribers, which is like with that one video. So I was like, you know what? I have to keep doing videos, because like this is too big of an audience to like not use. So yeah, I kept doing videos, and then now I have like around 350,000. So it's really just incredible because, like, again, this is completely unintentional.
What do you think is like the philosophy or mission statement of the videos you make?
I really just, I am there to like demystify Chinese culture and talk about Chinese history. Like, I have a few videos on like the life of the actual Wu Zetian, and they're each like an hour long. So if you want to know about like the actual details of her life, then I have videos on that. And then I want to continue doing lots of videos about like Chinese mythology and history. And probably everybody's been asking me to do Shang-Chi. So the moment that comes out on digital, I'm going to do a dissection of that.
Why do you think it's important? So a lot of your videos, Xiran, are taking the way, mainstream popular culture represents China and sort of critiquing it for like, authenticity and goodness. Why do you think that's an important conversation to have?
Just because a lot of times these Western-made productions are not written are not written by actual Chinese people. So like I want people to know the reactions of like someone who is Chinese and watching this, and then all the stuff that like feels wrong to me. And of course it's like all my personal opinions, but still, like I watched Mulan 2020 and it just like felt wrong in so many different ways. And that's basically what my first video is about, like why this felt wrong to me as a Chinese person.
What do you think the most rewarding part of making these YouTube videos has been?
Definitely the reaction of diaspora, because I have a lot of messages from diaspora or like adoptees or like Chinese people. Well, yeah, Chinese people in Southeast Asia are also diaspora, but like they come and tell me that they didn't grow up with much of a connection to their heritage. And then my videos really like fill that void for them. Like they make them feel more connected to their Chinese heritage. And they see me as kind of just like the wacky relative who like comes and tells them stories from like Chinese history and stuff, I guess. And they tell me that and how grateful they are for that. And then I had an in-person book signing the day my book was launched. And then I went there and then I met this girl who like when she met me, she started crying and then telling me like how she never really felt connected to her Chinese culture before my videos, but now after watching them, she's like getting connected, and then she's even taking like Chinese dance lessons. And I was like, wow, you're crying because you met me. What is going, like, I'm so touched. Like, it's weird to think that you have that effect on people, So like definitely those reactions are what keeps me going, like for the diaspora. And I know that a lot of like Chinese diaspora in Southeast Asia follow me too for my content. And I just like, oh, I'm so honored and so grateful for that they like come and watch my videos and like it does have an impact on them. And yeah, it's just incredible to feel.
Do you think for the next few years you're going to have plenty of material then of sort of interesting Western takes on Chinese culture?
Well, as long as Westerners keep making stuff about like Chinese culture, then I'll have stuff to talk about. But yeah, my to-do list for my videos is like a mile long. There's so much stuff on it, and I keep getting requests, and the requests get like strangely. Like they get so like strangely specific. They're like, "Oh, can you talk about this one episode from this Netflix short story collection?" And I'm like, oh my God, why? Even if I do videos on Chinese myth and history alone, then I will never run out of material, okay? There's like 3,000 years worth of material there. I'm not running out anytime soon.
One of the things I like most about your YouTube videos, I love the hairstyles, the makeup that you do. Like, I've been trying them out myself and they just don't work on my hair.
Well, that's because like in the Tang Dynasty, they were all about like big hair and like elaborate hairstyles and stuff, right? So I had to like get into the spirit of that and just like make my most like Tang Dynasty hair. And I get a lot of my hair, like my secret is just wig pieces. I order a lot of wig pieces from Taobao. And yes, unfortunately, they only come in black because black hair. And yeah, so I just plop them on. And yeah, actually, the Wu Zetian hair did take me a long ass time to do because it's very hard to secure.
Can you describe it?
The hair, it's like bunny ears. I don't know, you're gonna have to like go and watch my video to see the hairstyle.
We'll have it be the cover art, Xiran.
So, I mean, I think one of the sort of interesting things is, Obviously, there's a Chinese movie of Mulan that I think came out a few years ago.
The 2009 one?
Okay, so 12 years ago. And you have say Squid Game from Korea and K-dramas and things becoming really popular. Do you think that's going to happen with Chinese TV shows taking off in, say, the US?
Well, they are already taking off, especially the Danmei stuff, which stuff like the Untamed, that's really popular. So yes, I can. It's definitely becoming more mainstream, and it's very surreal to feel just because. And now I know how Japanese people feel when anime took off. It's a weird feeling. You see people messing up the names and then just being confused about why stuff is happening, and just being confused about why they have long hair. And it's you that's something that you didn't even know would need to be explained to people, but it does. So yeah, very strange feeling. If you want my opinion on the 2009 Mulan movie, I did give it at the end of my Mulan 2 dissection, but I was not a fan of that movie. It was so dull. The superior one is the 1965 or something Mulan movie. Lady General Hua Mulan. That is the superior Mulan adaptation. Yeah, that one's by the Shaw brothers.
Yeah, Xiran, what have you noticed? What in particular I'm not sure how much sort of mainland content you consume, but what struck you about the sort of 2010s, 2020s historical content which has been made that sort of touch on somewhat similar themes to say what your book gets into, for instance?
So I am so as for mainland content, definitely there's been so much more censorship lately that of course the themes are all very the themes are all very distilled. Well, not distilled, but I just you could definitely see people trying to get their ideas across under the very strict censorship, and yet everyone's worried about making this whole TV show, and then it never gets past the censors. So you simultaneously have shows like The Untamed and then Word of Honor, where it's actually straight up adapted from Danmei novels. They're supposed to be boys' love. And these shows, they become really popular, but also the Chinese Censorship Bureau is not happy with those shows. And I'm pretty sure they adapted recently arsehole, which is another really popular Danmei. And then apparently that show is never going to get released because they're trying to crack down on boys' love. So you can really see this push and pull, this power struggle, or not even power struggle because creators have no power, but this struggle between creators and the Chinese government censorship. And the creators are trying to do the best they can on their censorship, but you could just feel their frustration. But also there's this trend among Chinese historical dramas for more historically accurate sets and costumes, and they have done that. But the writing is just not there because they're under so much pressure to censor themselves and just produce a sanitized version of their scripts. So Chinese dramas, they look amazing and the production value has gone up so much, but the scripts have gone so they have gone so down in quality. My favorite Chinese dramas are still from years and years ago that are made in the early 2000s, where definitely my favorite favorite C-drama series is 铁齿铜牙纪晓岚. And the writing in it is just so brilliant because it actually alludes to a lot of political maneuvers and complexity, and then how you have to the struggle between Ji Xiaolan, who is a clean official, versus He Shen, who is a corrupt official. But He Shen's most officials are corrupt, so that's why I will always have more power than you, even though that you have the moral upper hand. And so, that show went into a lot of that, and it's just amazing. It may not have been historically accurate, but the story it told, it definitely had a message. But nowadays, just because of the rampant censorship, you have dramas that look amazing. They look like they have a lot of budget, and definitely there's a lot of thought that goes into the costumes and set designs. But their stories are just complete shit. And so, yeah, that's what's frustrating to me about modern C-dramas, is that, the stories are restricted, it looks good, but there's no substance.
What do you think it is specifically that's being cut out that you would like to see included more in C-dramas?
Just political maneuverings, and just, especially since the chain, and also morally gray protagonists. So the Chinese censorship bureau just really frowns upon protagonists who don't make the morally pure decision. They think that they're going to corrupt audiences or something. So like you have your main characters who are just, it's like the same type of character over and over again. Like it just has to be the standard hero or nothing. And that's just very boring to me. And yeah, you also you can't have themes that are too like politically politically like inflammatory, because then again that the Chinese censorship bureau is not happy about that. So like you really can't have substance because you can't be like inflammatory or critical. Everything just ends up like a romance fest.
So if they were to make a TV show of your book, what would have to be cut?
Literally everything. Like you just can't make that show.
So even if we can't make your show, I mean, Xiran, like, when are you moving to Hollywood? Like, when is Disney gonna hire you as a script consultant?
No, I don't trust Hollywood, and they won't trust me.
What's your sort of overall take of, English language content about China on YouTube?
But let's just say that there is a reason that I'm just gonna go out and say it. Too many white people making them. There's a reason that like I make an endeavor to like make videos about Chinese history and that stuff instead, just because it's just too many white people. Like they need a Chinese voice on HistoryTube.
I mean, but I suppose the bar to entry to YouTube is quite low. Do you think there's something putting people off?
It is.
Say diaspora or something who want to talk about China?
Well, it's very hard to like get going on YouTube. Like me, my channel blew up by just complete random chance. So if someone asks me for tips on how to like make it on YouTube too, I don't know what to say to them. Just because I just made a video and it blew up. Like I really can't explain to you why.
Anyone else who you think is making good stuff out there that you'd want to recommend, Xiran?
Oh, definitely Accented Cinema and Cool History Bros. Accented Cinema makes a lot of videos on film and especially like Asian cinema, like Hong Kong cinema, and he does really good takes. And then Cool History Bros, he makes videos on East Asian history and like a lot of like Chinese history, and he makes such cute animations for them. Yeah, and then so yeah, they are two very like underrated channels, especially Cool History Bros.
Xiran, thank you so much for being a part of ChinaTalk.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
And today's outro music is Manta by Lexi Leon.
Not a swimming pool, it's an ocean. Diving that cash like I'm chosen. Then my 24 karat got you frozen, yeah. 我的不一样的世界又怎样 Hit me on the surface, let lurking. Overheat it up, that gon' make me nervous. 水里呼吸着闪动，不属于我的翅膀 Lucifer 不要慌，这不是我的名字 Now, we can start the fish and bite me another round. Diamonds on me like I'm fresh out of water. I'm a Marina, reeling me in with a thin line. Fly underwater, I don't need no man, 追不回看到过我海洋蓝色 Fly underwater, I don't need no man, 追不回看到过我海洋蓝色 Manta, I fly in water, little manta, double fish Manta, call on me, I don't need no romance. I fly like a manta, I fly in water, little manta, double fish Manta, call on me, I don't need no romance. Glitter on my skin, I'm a shiner. Got a flight to catch a mind back to China. But the shins on me, do my China. But when I bust it open, boy, you better swim. No ocean, 怎么还要追？当我没有时间可以浪费，我从未试过在陆地上飞起来。I've been riding on a wave, tripping water tonight. Manta, I fly in water, low manta, devil fish, manta. Call on me, I don't need no romance. I fly like a manta, I fly in water, low manta, devil fish, manta. Call on me, I don't need no romance. Devil fish, devil fish, devil fish, devil fish, devil fish, devil fish. Yeah. fly underwater. I don't need no man now. 就不会看到我还用蓝色 fly underwater. I don't need no man now. 就不会看到我还